There's a moment every seasoned gardener eventually experiences. You peel back a layer of rich, damp compost that hasn't been turned for weeks, and suddenly you see it, a wriggling, thriving community of worms working in silence. They weren't coaxed there. They weren't added. They simply arrived, multiplied, and took over. And once you understand why worms swarm to unturned compost, everything about how you build soil changes. Today I'm sharing exactly why this happens and how you can use that natural instinct to supercharge your garden with almost no labor. This shortcut can help you produce more worm activity, more nutrient cycling, and better soil than turning compost ever could. The first reason worms swarm to unturned compost is stability. When compost is left undisturbed, moisture, temperature, and microbial life settle into a predictable, calm pattern. Worms prefer environments where nothing suddenly shifts. Turning compost exposes them to air, disrupts their channels, and dries out the microzones they rely on. In an unturned pile, the humidity stays between 60 and 80%, which is exactly their comfort zone. The pile also stays cool at the top and warm at the bottom, allowing worms to move vertically as needed. That stability creates what I call a worm corridor, a perfect blend of food, shelter, and microbe-rich bedding. When you leave compost untouched, you stop breaking their homes apart, and they respond by moving in by the hundreds. The second reason unturned compost attracts worms is the fungal dominance that develops when oxygen layers stay intact. When a pile is constantly flipped, bacteria dominate the decomposition process. But when you leave it alone, fungi take over, creating long strands of mycelium that help break down complex plant matter. Worms feed directly on fungi and on the microbe-coated organic particles that fungi help create. If you've ever opened an unturned pile and noticed white spiderwebbing across the surface, that is exactly what the worms are after. The fungi soften and partially pre-digest materials like leaves, shredded cardboard, and straw, making them easier for worms to consume. So when you keep your compost unturned, you're essentially preparing a gourmet buffet that worms can't resist. Another major reason worms swarm to unturned compost is the natural layering that develops. Over weeks, the top stays fresher, while the bottom becomes richer and more decomposed. Worms instinctively move toward the zone with the perfect moisture and softness. For most compost piles, that sweet spot is 5 to 8 inches below the surface. The reason this matters for gardeners is simple. When you disturb the pile by turning it, you collapse those layers. But if you leave it alone, worms build a vertical tunnel system that allows air and microbes to move naturally. You end up with a living, breathing structure instead of a heavy mass that needs mechanical aeration. Worms handle the airflow for you, and they do it better than any pitchfork ever could. Now let's talk about how to use this instinct to your advantage in the garden. One of the simplest applications is something I call the quiet compost zone. Instead of flipping your pile every week, you add materials slowly in thin layers. A ratio of roughly 3 parts dry carbon to 1 part green nitrogen keeps the pile balanced without overheating. So, that means you'll want to use about 3 small buckets of shredded leaves or straw for every single bucket of vegetable scraps or fresh plant matter. As long as the pile doesn't spike above 60 degrees Celsius, worms will stick around. Just add your inputs gently right on top, let the worms pull them downward and, try to resist the urge to stir. In about 8 to 12 weeks, the lower half of the pile actually turns into worm-cast-rich humus, and you don't have to do any turning at all. Another practical shortcut is to use unturned compost as a worm magnet directly in your garden beds. This is especially powerful if you're dealing with compact or tired soil. Honestly, just take a 12-inch deep trench between rows or along the edge of a bed, and fill it with half-finished, unturned compost, at a ratio of 2 parts compost to 1 part carbon bedding, like shredded cardboard. Then, just cover it lightly with soil. Worms are drawn to that zone instantly, because they travel horizontally into the soil. They carry microbes and castings with them. This method can revive a bed in 4 to 6 weeks, and honestly, it works far better than just dumping finished compost on top. You can also use unturned compost to seed worm activity in new raised beds. Start with a 4-inch layer of unfinished compost at the bottom, then add your normal soil mix on top. The worms move upward as the compost cools and decomposes, spreading evenly throughout the bed instead of clustering in one pocket. In a standard 4 by 8 foot bed, about 20 liters of unturned compost is enough to attract an entire working population within a month. One more powerful way to use this shortcut is to create what I call a worm anchor zone, inside large containers or grow bags. Add a small, permanent cup-sized pocket of unturned compost just off to the side of the planting area. Keep that pocket fed once every 2 weeks with a handful of soft kitchen scraps and a handful of dry carbon. The worms will stay in the pot, converting root zone waste and old roots into new soil. This works especially well for tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers because they, respond really strongly to fresh worm castings near the root zone. When you understand why worms swarm to unturned compost, you stop fighting nature's systems and start partnering with them. The worms handle the aeration, the moisture balancing, the microbe expansion, and the nutrient cycling. All you have to do is give them a quiet, undisturbed place to work, and feed them a steady supply of balanced organic material. If you found this shortcut helpful, make sure to subscribe to Garden Guru and share this guide with another gardener who needs healthier soil with less effort.